Welcome to Time to Teach with Tammy, the podcast that gives tips, advice, and suggestions to teachers by a real teacher. So sit back and enjoy, and oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe.
And we're back. Welcome to episode 47 entitled Getting Over the Spring Hump. Today's topic is not really a totally brand new topic. I feel like, especially when I went through the series of the life and work balance, it was kind of addressed. So you might, if you listen to that series, you might hear some things that are familiar. This is a little bit different in the sense that I'm really addressing what happens to us during the springtime as the school year is coming to an end. And it's like that last little lull before the end of the school year. And I think we teachers know that it's a difficult time of year. So we're going to talk about that on today's episode, but we're going to talk about those issues, and we're going to kind of talk about strategies that I use to help me get through it, because I am just like all of us, and I experience days where I feel like, oh, this is kind of a little more challenging than maybe a different time in the school year. So I want to really focus on that this episode. But before we get started with that, let's go into our wins and fails segment. So, wins for the week. I'm actually recording very early in the week. This is a Tuesday. Well, I like to record by Wednesday, so I guess I'm kind of on track to be doing that. But in terms of what has happened, I think my big win is that, at this time of recording, I have just returned from spring break. Actually, you're probably hearing this several weeks after, because I have a couple of pre-recorded episodes, but this episode is being recorded just coming back from spring break. This is just literally my second day back. It's the Tuesday back from spring break, and at my school, we are so very fortunate. We have 2 weeks off for spring break, and that's because spring break here in Mexico, it always follows Semana Santa, so I guess Holy Week is what that would be called, and then Pascua, which is Easter. So those 2 weeks we always have off. And so my win is that I'm just like, I really enjoyed the 2 weeks. I really rested. Like, I was probably so unproductive that it's somewhat sad. Just kidding, not sad, but good for me, because I really, sometimes I feel guilty when I feel like I haven't really been productive, but I always make the argument, you guys, I just think it's so healthy to take time to just do things that you wouldn't normally do. So over spring break, I really don't do much. That's so untypical of my normal life. It can sometimes also, what happens to me over vacations is, if we're gone doing something, which we were for 1 week, the second week we were at the beach, but the first week I was literally just kind of hanging around my house, getting some stuff done. And for me, that could sometimes drive me a little crazy, although I'm not like a very active person. I have, I'm not someone who is very sensory in the sense that I feel like I need to be out and experiencing all of these things. My experiences that I enjoy tend to be, like researching things and trying to figure stuff out in my head, making sense of stuff, listening to podcasts. Like, that's exciting for me. That's my exciting life. But what happens is I do start to get a little like, oh, What do I do now? I kind of like, I don't know, I guess what I'm trying to say is being at work, when I go and I teach every day, it just brings so much value to my life. I definitely am not someone who could be a stay at home person. And that is not saying anything bad about staying at home. Someone who, those routines just are very wonderful to me. I find joy and security in those routines. I also just like going out and getting up every morning, doing something that I love, which is teaching. So, I think being on vacation and being able to really relax and do nothing gives me the energy that I need so I can come back and do this thing that I love called teaching. So yeah, so that was a win. I had 2 really great weeks of not having to get up at 4:30 in the morning. I do miss that. I really do. I miss sleeping in. I say is like the only thing I really miss. It's hard. And that actually brings me to my fail for the week. It's hard, you guys. It's Tuesday. It is hard getting up in the morning right now because I'm not back into my normal sleeping patterns. If you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you know that I have a ridiculous bedtime for myself. And yes, whenever I say that to people, they laugh like, oh, haha, you have a bedtime. Yes, I know, it probably sounds crazy. But I believe in sleep. I believe in it so much. So because of that, I set a bedtime for me. And I'm pretty faithful to that bedtime, give or take a few minutes here or there. But springtime is always difficult. So it's hard because I'm just coming back from vacation. I was not following my normal sleep patterns on vacation because I don't keep that ridiculous bedtime over break. Obviously, it's something that I do during the school year simply because I want to enjoy my days. And I just find that when I don't get enough sleep, I'm not at my, I'm not my most effective self, and I don't feel good, and I like to be as effective as I possibly can. If I have any say into the equation, and oftentimes I have some kind of say. And so I just want to feel good and I want to enjoy my days, and getting enough sleep is a way that I can do that. So but my fail is the first night, Sunday night. Oh my goodness, you guys. I did not go to bed until like midnight. I wanted to. The desire was there, but I could not. I was just, I'd gotten into kind of the bad habit of staying up until about 11-ish. And then I think the last few nights of vacation, like during the week part, it kind of extended until like midnight. And then that was not good. But, so anyway, so Sunday night I could not sleep until 12. So believe you me, I hit the off button when my 4:30 alarm went off, and then slept in until about 5-ish. And then last night I was asleep. Well, I wasn't. I think I was shutting everything off by 9:15. I'd been reading since 8 o'clock, but then by like 8:30 I was like, oh no, I want to read some more of this book. So I actually went until about a little bit after 9. It was 9:15, 9:25, something with a 5, but I don't know what. And then I went to bed, and no problem there. So I'm getting closer to my bedtime, but this is something that I do every time, so I already know this happens. It just takes me a little while. But then just being spring and it's hot, and it's, like now because of my ridiculous bedtime, it's still light outside when it's like close to my bedtime. So just spring is always hard for me to really be faithful to that 8:30 time. I typically find from spring onward, my bedtime is usually like 9-ish or early in the 9 o'clock hour, just because it's so hot. So just like falling asleep gets more difficult, and it's tough. It's a tough life. Okay, and completely not part of today's topic, but before I get started, I just want to say, you guys, it's been almost a year that I have been podcasting. We're in April right now. I'm not quite sure when you're listening. Well, you might be listening anytime. This is probably actually going to, from the time I'm recording, it's probably going to be a good 3 weeks until this publishes. So it'll probably be getting closer to May when this actually publishes. But yeah, you guys, May. I went back and looked in iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever they want to be called. It's so hard. I just have to stick to iTunes. But in any case, I went back because I knew that I launched Time to Teach in May. I knew that. But are you kidding me? I'm not going to remember the date. But I looked back, and according to what shows up in iTunes, May 28th was of 2017 was the first episode, or the date when the first episode was published. So May 28th. So almost a year, you guys, of podcasting, and I don't even know. It's so crazy. It is so crazy to think that it's been a year. Of, just like it started as really an idea that I thought about I was thinking about this for a while. But then just actually being able to execute this idea, make it a reality, and and then be a year into it. It's crazy, you guys, so crazy. So yeah, I'm so excited. I have a few ideas. Okay, I have one idea. I have one idea for what I think I'm going to do for that 1 year anniversary. But I'm not 100% sure. But of course, if you are listening to this and it is not yet May 28th of 2018, please, if you have ideas or something you'd like me to do for that 1 year anniversary, you can tweet to me at TammyJ123. That's at TAMIJ123. Of course, if you're listening to this and it's after, still, you may still tweet to me, but I will have already done the 1 year anniversary show. So yeah, probably would not be a very effective tweet, but you can tweet to me about something else. Okay, you guys, 13 minutes in, I say it's time to get this party started. Okay, so today's episode, getting over the spring hump. A lot of my episode topics really are derived by things that I'm experiencing, or just maybe they're pressing issues in education, which I think that's happened once. Typically, it's something that I'm experiencing in the classroom, or just something I've been thinking a lot about. And of course, being that right now it's spring, of course, I cannot help but to think about this, just the struggle that is so real. My specific location, so you guys know, or maybe if this is your first time, I am down in Mexico. I'm not from Mexico. I am from California. I am a California girl, but I have been living and teaching down here for just about 9 years at this point that I'm recording. And it is hot. It is hot. The spring is our hottest season, so we're in that springtime, and just as it gets very warm, it just becomes draining on everyone. It's very obviously draining on the students. They get tired. We teachers get tired, and because of that, it's tough. Also, I think just kind of knowing. Now, we go until about the end of June. I don't know when exactly our last day is. I don't like to do countdowns. I don't like to be like, oh, we've only got I don't know how many more days, or how many. I think we're about 10 or 11 weeks. I do know that only because we're on an even week this week, so it makes the math really easy. We're on week 30, and I believe we have about 41 weeks, so I guess that would be 11 weeks. But I only know that because obviously I know the week that we're on, but I'm not someone who likes to count down because I always feel like it's so important to enjoy each day, right? Because it's not, I feel like if my happiness is getting to the end of something, what about all the in between? I did an episode on that. If you haven't listened to that, go back and check it out. I don't remember which one it is. I could do a little bit of research and figure it out, but in my defense, I probably won't. But it's something about enjoying Mondays, not just Fridays, and it talks about this, about really enjoying each day. I find that so important in our overall contentment with life. I don't want to be just happy on Saturday and Sunday. I really want to learn how to enjoy Monday and Tuesday. So the same is true. I really don't like to count down to the summer because, if I'm not happy until then, that's a whole lot of days of unhappiness. So I need to figure that out. So I don't do countdowns. But we are at the end. We are really at the end of the school year, and it just becomes so difficult because I think, we all can sense it. We all know that it's getting close. We teachers know, students know. A lot of our students, most of them have very, how can I say, maybe they're very privileged in a sense and very fortunate. They have a lot of opportunities, I think, given to them. So all of that is to say they typically will have lots of summer plans. That will usually include, going to other countries and, just doing lots of wonderful things. And that there is an anticipation. They're excited. They start really having these very detailed summer plans. Of course, they're getting excited about that. And of course, many teachers end up going back home during the summer. Wherever their home is, about 50% of our teachers come from abroad. And I mean, I'm in Mexico, so I'm considering abroad being some teachers are coming from the United States. We have Canadian teachers. So they go back home for the summer. And of course they're excited because they're going to see family that they've seen, very infrequently over the school year because they've been here in Mexico. So that's exciting. So just all of those things just make the springtime extremely difficult and challenging. Now, I kind of drew on my personal experience, but I know this is true for all teachers, or for the majority of teachers. We're all having to kind of get through to the end. I also don't like to say it that way. It sounds so negative, and I really don't mean it that way. But we're just, embracing that challenge and trying to find really good strategies to make sure that we do the rest of the year with enough energy, because I think that's something else that happens. Teaching is taxing. We lose energy. Students have lost energy. So that's what I mean by the spring hump. And if you've been at this for any given time, you probably are aware of it. So I just want to spend the rest of the time today just kind of talking about a few strategies. I mean, either way, it's not going to be super easy. So doing these strategies, I'm not saying do this and from spring until the end, life is great. But I do think that having strategies in place and maybe being a little bit mindful of those strategies and in advance, and mindful in the way of, this is what I'm going to try to do. So when I'm feeling down or when something is challenging, this is what I'm going to do. I just think implementing these and having them in mind is going to just make from getting through that spring hump just slightly easier. So just a few tips that I have. Again, these are not going to be like totally new things. In fact, none of them are new. But I do think like this is a really good time to be discussing this. If you did follow this series on the life and work balance, a lot of these strategies that I think about and utilize during the springtime is really just any good strategies for any kind of a time where you might be feeling like you need a little extra boost, or you just need some good strategies to get through a difficult time. So number one, I've already kind of talked about it in terms of myself, but you do want to make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Okay, I know we all know this, but I don't think we all implement it. So how do I get enough sleep? Well, you guys know I set myself a bedtime. Yours does not have to be ridiculous and be 8:30 like mine. It does not have to be like that. But I do think if you set yourself a bedtime, you're going to probably get more sleep because it's then already built into your schedule. So when we just make a plan of, oh, I'm going to go to bed early. Well, what is early? What did I decide I'm going to do? I like to have it really set. So because I know that 8:30 is my bedtime, I start actually getting ready for bed well before then. Usually I like to, like in the probably the later part of the 7 o'clock hour, start getting, like washing my face. If I don't think I'm gonna have anything else to eat, start brushing my teeth, then really getting things ready, kind of going through those rituals so that by the time it's 8:30, I will really be ready. And then I go into bed after I've done all my ritual stuff, and then I will read. That's the very last thing I do. And then by 8:30, be ready to turn off, because I'm usually reading online through my Kindle app, which I know that kind of exposure is not supposed to be good right before bed, but when in Mexico or when abroad, you do what you can, so it's easier for me to get access to English books that way. That's what I do. That's how I read. So yeah, just give yourself a bedtime, really make sure and get plenty of sleep, and that's going to help you get through this difficult last few months, because you'll be well rested and you'll feel really good. So that's number one on the list. The other thing that I know we know, but please, drinking water is so important. And I know I am guilty of this myself. I am conscious of trying to consume more water, but I feel like this is literally a goal that I'm always working on. So if I ever get to the point where I feel like I'm always consuming enough water, that will be great. I think one of the issues as teachers is we can't always get to the bathroom. So it is difficult. I admit that, because, well, I'm very fortunate to have a TA. So if 4 days out of the week. So if it's, 4 days out of the week, I can typically go out and go to the bathroom if need be, because she's in there. But yeah, it's not always easy as teachers, but drinking water is going to make you feel better. It just kind of cleans out your system. And it's just it's so good. Your brain needs it. Your body needs it. It's just going to help you to function better, and just keep you hydrated the way you need. Now with that, you guys know I really recommend eating real food. So during the day, something that I don't do is I don't drink sodas at all, so during any time. But I think that's one of the downfalls. Like, we feel like, oh, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling sluggish, let me reach for that soda, let me reach for that candy bar. And these are things that in the moment may taste good and may have a very quick immediate effect that makes us feel good briefly, but then it just brings us down. That sugar crash, it's not worth it, in my opinion. It only makes it worse. So if I'm thinking about long term throughout the day, I really want to avoid things like that. So what I do is I just make sure that I have real food on me. My main focus is just real food anyway. So when I go to work, I'm going to bring things that are real. What I mean by real food is typically anything that comes from a box, or it's made in a factory. That's not usually real. Crackers are not really real if it doesn't appear that way naturally. So you think about food in its most natural form. Maybe there was a little bit of processing involved. Maybe I cooked up some meat. So of course, anytime you're cooking something, there is some kind of processing going on. But the more real, the more nutritious it is going to be for you. So you're putting healthy things in your body. That's only going to, help to really fuel your body and energy, but also your brain too. Because that used to be what I used to find is like by 1 o'clock, I was so tired, and I was always likened myself to a zombie. Not that I know what maybe a zombie feels like, but what I imagine it would feel like if I were a zombie. By 1 o'clock, just can't even, just like total fog brain, total exhaustion. And since I've been making these really good changes in my life the last couple of years, like making sure I exercise, making sure I eat healthy and get enough sleep, I don't experience that anymore. That does not mean that I don't get tired. That does not mean any of that. But at least now it's more like, I'm not as energetic as I was at the beginning of the day. That's so much different than what I used to experience, which was like, you just asked me a question. I literally can't even process it because I'm that tired. So I'm so thankful for those changes. I can't even tell you guys how thankful I am. It's why I started my whole health journey. I feel like I'm on my way. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm on my way. And then, like I said, also exercise. Exercise is so good, you guys. I don't think exercise is great at losing weight unless maybe you're focusing on interval training and you're incorporating weights. And then I think, it is going to help for you to tone and lose some body fat. But primarily, I feel like exercise is just healthy because it gets your oxygen flowing. It's good for your brain. And when I say I feel, I mean, I listen to a lot of health podcasts, and doctors have echoed that. So I guess it's more than a feeling. We know it is just good for your overall health. So like you guys know, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I know that's early. You don't have to get up early. You can fit it in wherever it makes sense in your schedule. But I do think you want to definitely make time for exercise. Okay. And then my next tip is breathe. Take time to just breathe. I've mentioned this before, and I know it probably sounds funny. Maybe not so much, since I think mindfulness is becoming more talked about and more popular, so maybe it doesn't sound so funny. But even when you're finding yourself in a moment of, like maybe you're just having a challenging day with maybe, I certainly have experienced days where it seems like, oh my goodness, where like so many students are having conflicts. I'm finding myself having to intervene and help, and it's emotionally taxing. That's so emotionally taxing because remember, I'm also trying to teach on top of all of that, and I just feel like this emotional pull from me, and those times where I just have to kind of stop. And I don't think anyone around me would actually be conscious. I just have to kind of stop and collect my thoughts and just breathe, make sure I think, and then I can kind of respond to them. But just giving a moment before my initial reaction might be like, I cannot take another conflict. And I believe so strongly in the emotional and social aspect, so I try very, very hard in this area. But it would be a lie to say it's not emotional taxing, and I do have to take time where I just, take a breath for myself, and just try to, like, okay, I've already maybe dealt with several different incidents with several different students who are experiencing different conflicts. I need to just kind of breathe, think, and then act. Okay. Then my next little tip for you is, if you're having a day where it's one of those days that you're just not at 100, because we all have those days. I mean, our goal is to be as effective as we possibly can each day. That's why we do all of these things, but you're going to have days, let's be realistic. You're going to have days, I experience this as well, where I'm just like, you know what? Today I'm not at 100. So I'm going to have to accept my 80% or wherever I'm at. Now, of course, we do not want to make a habit of performing low, and I'm not even advocating to perform low. So I hope it doesn't come off that way, except I'm the one who literally put it that way. But I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes we put a lot of pressure, and I think we need to be okay with the idea that some days it's not my day. Like maybe, let's use yesterday, for example. Yesterday was my first day back from break. Believe me when I say yesterday my strategy was get through today. Just get through today. Because coming back from break, just being so extremely tired, like I said, I went to bed at about midnight. So of course I knew I was going to have that kind of a day. That's why I'm trying to get back into my bedtime, because I don't like to feel that way. And then I know it affects me in every aspect. And also with my teaching. So I was not at 100% yesterday. Yes, I did try my best. But I realized that it was somewhat of a challenge, and I had to kind of accept and be okay that, it's not like I'm not going to be trying hard. It's just, I know this is not the best me. And I realize that, and I know, I need to go to bed earlier tonight. And I did end up going to bed earlier. It was easier because after being so tired, then it's easier. That's just what happens every break as I start kind of regulating my bedtime again and getting back on track. But you just want to be okay. If you're just not at 100, just, it's okay. It's a day, it's a moment, it's a class period, it's whatever it is. And then just figure out what you need to do to improve and feel more towards 100. But it's okay. Just, we have to be forgiving of ourselves, I think, and understand that some days are going to be like that. And I would just, again, remind you and caution you that these are exceptions. We don't want to be in a habit of being kind of low in our energy and not performing to our very best, because if it's more than a day or a few days here and there, it starts to become like a very long moment, and that can become a constant state of being, and that's what we don't want, and definitely what I'm not advocating for. So just caution, just I think if you just check yourself and recognize it when it's happening and think about what is it that I need to do so that tomorrow or the next class period or whatever your situation is, what is it that I need to do differently to get myself closer to 100? And if you just actively acknowledge it and consider it, then you're going to work towards it, and then your next class period or your next day, you're going to feel much better. You will be performing much better, but you definitely want to reflect on those things, so that by design, you're having a better day. So, yes. So, the next thing I want to talk about is read. Obviously, you cannot do this during the school day, but I'm a big advocate of reading, and I even did an episode on that, which I think by the time this one publishes, that episode will have published. I don't think it published it yet. I feel very kind of not remembering. I need to look back and see what's published and what's not. The thing is, I like to batch some of my episodes, so it makes me, sometimes just keeping track of, did that publish yet, or is it in queue and waiting? But anyway, yeah, so read. And the reason why I say this is because reading is really, it's good for us. I think we know that. I think as educators, I probably don't have to spend too much time explaining that, although having said that, like I just said, I did a whole episode on it. But I think we know the benefits of reading. But another great benefit, you guys, I find reading to me is total therapy. I mean, when else do you get to step out of your shoes and experience something else? Well, I guess every time you turn on the TV or you do some other alternative way to escape reality. But reading is a way to do that, and it's because of all the benefits. I really suggest reading for good therapy. It's a healthy habit. If you're not in the habit, I encourage you to make it a habit. I read nightly. My goal is to read like 20 minutes a night, but most nights I surpass that. I usually like to put my goals kind of low, because being the upholder that I am, I will almost always do my goal unless something happens and if it's out of, because it's something beyond something that I can control. Otherwise I'm just gonna do it because it's just the kind of person that I am. But because I know that I'm that kind of person, I like to set my goals low, and then I can always increase. But if I set like, okay, I'm gonna do 100 minutes of reading every night, well, I know the kind of person I am. That means I'm gonna do 100 minutes of reading every night, and I know that I just don't have 100 minutes. That's an exaggerated goal, of course. I'm just trying to make a point. But so because of that, I kind of lower it. And what I do then, it's easier to meet the 20 minutes, and then I surpass it. And then also I feel really good, like, oh, I met my goal and more. So it's kind of like, it's because I'm an upholder, but it's also a really good strategy to give yourself a little extra boost of like, oh, look at me. I went above and beyond. I surpassed what I initially set out to do. Okay, and very last little tip that I have is just make time for you during the day. Find something that you enjoy doing, if it's a hobby. And that could be reading. For me, that's, the reading is my therapy, but it's also a way for me to make time for me. Although I have other things like my exercise in the morning is me making time for me. Find something that you can do for you, because this is really part of like a very healthy balance. You need to do things that are re-energizing and just, centering you, I believe, in a way where, you're just like more focused on you, and you can feel, if nothing else, I would say more content. I like to use the word happy, but when I use it, I usually am really meaning to say content, because being a happy person doesn't necessarily mean that every second you feel happy. You feel content, and part of feeling content is making sure that we're doing things for ourselves. So yeah, that's pretty much it, you guys. These are things that I do. I really do it anytime, all year round, these things, but I do it especially when I'm going through something that's stressful, something that may be difficult. And I do feel like in the spring, it is a difficult time, you guys. It is really difficult. But yeah, that's it, you guys. I'm going to end our episode right there because it's over. So doesn't that make sense? I think it does. Okay, you guys. So I really hope that you got something out of today's episode. If you have tried some of these strategies and it's working for you, I would love to hear from you. You can tweet to me. If you have strategies that you use that I haven't included, I would also love to hear that. Again, you can reach me on Twitter. That's probably one of the best ways to reach me. My Twitter handle is at TammyJ123. That's TAMIJ123. I'll see you next time.
Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Before you go, don't forget you can catch our show notes online at www.timetoteach.libsyn. That's libsyn.com. We're also on Facebook at Time to Teach. Don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Teachers for Effective Curriculum. And if you're an educator with your own podcast show, I invite you to join our brand new Facebook group, Teachers Who Podcast. Let's grow a community where we can network, problem solve, and discuss anything and everything podcast related. I'll see you there.